everyone, in today's hand history I am playing the $2,200 buy-in 1.5 million guaranteed event at the Wynn. This is day 1C of this tournament. This is my, let's see here, so on day 1 I played 1 entry. On day 2 I played 3 entries, so this is my 5th entry into this tournament. I know a lot of people have like misgivings about playing extra entries into tournaments. The way that I view it is that each entry that I play is a brand new tournament. So if I'm going to re-enter or play an event, it purely comes down to would I enter at this stage of this tournament? And the answer is yes, then I enter. The answer is no, I do not. The only exception to that is if, say, I'm pretty close to the end of registration, in which case I might not enter until the very last second. But for the most part, most live stuff, I'm just going to keep entering while registration is still open, unless it's like a really high buy-in or really tough tournament or like a PSKO or something like that. So on my 5th entry overall, but this is my first entry of day 1C. It is big blind 300. I have 21K and I have the ace-3 of clubs in the small blind. Folds to the button, who is a younger professional. He raises to 700, or a bit over 2 big blinds. He raises off of a 25K stack, and in the big blind is another pro who has 40K. So my small blind replies. So first, this is going to be his opening range here. He has about 80 bigs effective. So his button opening range, 51% of hands. So he's going to be opening pretty loose here. I'd expect this player to be around this percent. I think in general, people tend to like, maybe they might peer fold this king 5 off, but going to peer open this ace deuce. So I would expect them to be around this 51%. They might be like over opening suited hands, that type of stuff. But for the most part, they're going to be around here. Now, verse single action from the small blind with my ace-3 of clubs, small blind versus button. Ace-3 suited here. As you can see, it is largely a call. It does work okay as a 3-bet. I feel as though when we're this deep effective, unblocking all the other suited hands, I generally just prefer calling so I can flush over flush someone. Well, big blind is a pro. I don't think he's like hyper aggressive or anything like that. So I probably get to slightly over-realize equity on this peel as well. Now, if I thought the big blind was very aggressive, I would be way more inclined to 3-bet this ace-3 of clubs. Instead, I think this is a very easy call. So button opens to 700. I call in the small blind with my ace-3 of clubs, and the big blind folds. So pot size is 2,000, and the flop is the jack of spades, the jack of heart, and the 8 of spades. This board texture is going to be an easy check for me. As we can see here, I'm essentially just supposed to peer check. I do get a tiny percentage of leads, which is somewhat surprising. I just wouldn't expect to have leads here. Yeah, I'm surprised. Even though it's only a small percent, I just would never expect to have any leads here. Anyways, pretty easy check for me with my ace-3 of clubs. As we can see here, I'm just supposed to be peer checking anyways. And I want to check anyways just to keep in all of his bluffs, which are going to be pretty important for me here. So I check. Obviously, he's largely going to be betting, but actually it looks like he gets to split. It's actually kind of surprising to me. I would have expected that he would c-bet, say, 80%. So 50% check back is kind of surprising. I guess it's because the small blind's calling range is high Broadway heavy. Even on 80 big blinds, I just have a lot of cards that are all around this. So even though he has an uncapped range and I'm somewhat capped because of Jack-Jack, because the Jack-Jack-8 hits my calling range so hard, it looks like that he's going to be inclined to check back. Also might have something to do with stack to pot ratio. We're very deep effective. So if he does continuation bet and I do raise, he's going to be facing lots of barrels from a fairly strong range that hits this pretty hard. So it does make sense, but I'm still somewhat surprised. 50% check back is very, very, very high, and I just wouldn't have expected it here. So he continuation bets 500 into a pot size of 2K, and I have a very easy, well, looks like in game I have an easy fold, or in theory, I have an easy fold, but in game, there's something to be said about players' unwillingness to triple off in lots of spots, especially in situations where it's hard for you to have many hands without much equity, spots that are significantly underfloated. So I feel as though when I call small blind here, that for the most part, he's not really going to double barrel or triple barrel anywhere near enough. So my ace three, while it technically is supposed to be a fold, I felt in game that it's going to be a perfectly fine call, especially versus a quarter pot c-bet. Now, let's say instead he had gone half pot or 2/3 pot or 3/4 pot. I would be way more inclined to fold that, but even then I still might call, just because people often, when they upsize in these types of spots, tend to be over checking back, try to just like get one street stab through. So either way, I'm probably calling here. Other reason why I like to call in these types of spots, besides for the fact that they under bluff, so I'm generally just going to be pretty comfortable at making good live reads versus most players. So I feel as though this call, while obviously very far outside of theory, I think is still going to be the correct decision for me in game. So I call. The turn is the 4 of clubs. So offsuit for turn. I obviously check, as I want to keep in all of his bluffs, and he obliges and he double barrels. So he barrels, he goes half pot. Obviously we're going to give him this 2/3 pot size, but he barrels half pot. Again, I'm not too concerned here. I still think that my ace three is going to be a pretty comfortable call. Main reason being is that I think he's going to significantly overcheck back. Now, the downside of calling is he certainly can have plenty of better ace highs as bluffs, but I don't think they're necessarily going to. I think weaker players are probably going to be more apt to barrel their ace highs as bluffs. I think stronger players are going to be more apt to check them back here. So like, as you can see here, he's supposed to be checking back ace 7, ace 9, ace 10, ace queen, ace king. So when he does barrel, I'm actually not too concerned about him having ace high. I think the main types of hands that you're going to have are going to be hands like king queen, king 10, queen 9, all of those types of hands, 9-7, queen 9, king, all of his king highs. And since he opened the button, that gives him the best opportunity to have as many of those king and queen highs as possible, as well as even 9 high or even 6 high and 7 high. So I feel as though that he's going to be barreling more than often enough to make this ace 3 still a call versus double barrel. And even though theory, well, now that we're on the turn with this hand, wait one sec here, now that we are on the turn with this hand, yeah, it still wants us to fold. It even wants us to fold that backdoor flush draw, but I don't care. Like I said, I think he's going to be significantly under triple barreling. And on top of that, the times that he does barrel, I think I'm going to be able to either get a live read that he's bluffing or get a live read that he has it and just make my decision based off of that. So when he barrels 2/3, or so when in game he barreled 1,500 into a pot size of 3K for half pot, and I called my ace 3 of clubs, which is supposed to be a theory fold. So I am now making not one theory mistake, but 2 theory mistakes. Yet in game, I think I'm making good decisions versus this exact opponent. Okay, so river is the 3 of diamonds. I now river 2 pair. So if he happened to be bluffing his ace highs or hands like that, which I don't think he would be, I now beat all of those bluffs. So I beat pretty much every hand in his range that's going to be bluffing. I think every hand by a mile that's bluffing. And I only lose to his hands that are willing to triple barrel for value here on this run out. So I check to him, and he bets half pot. I think at half pot, he could have aces, kings, and queens. I definitely think that's for sure. I don't think he's going to have 10s or 9s, though. I think he's really only going to have aces, kings, queens, and jack X, and that it. That being said, he does have lots of jack X here. He can have ace jack and king jack and queen jack and jack 10, jack 9, and jack 8, and every suited jack. So he does have a lot of jacks. Yet in game, I call, and I called pretty quickly. And the reason why is live tell. So there are a lot of different live tells that I think are really, really, really important. Honestly, one of the most important ones is the pulse tell. So a lot of people don't understand what the pulse tell is or how it works and why it works that way. So what the pulse tell is when someone's pulse is beating pretty heavily, it usually means one of two things. Either A, they have a strong hand because they're excited, so that's their adrenaline pumping, or B, they have a weak hand and they're bluffing, so they're scared, so that's why their adrenaline's pumping. So fight or flight response. So how do you actually decide whether or not it is a good thing or a bad thing? Well, a couple different ways. First of all, when it starts. When it starts is really, really, really important. So let's say you're paying attention to your opponents and they look at their hand and their pulse isn't doing anything. And all of a sudden you see that they're going to 3-bet and now their pulse really quickens. Probably means they're bluffing. And another way to actually pick up on the pulse tell read, and this is one of the main ways that I do it on like river decisions, is paying attention to whether their pulse stays strong, i.e. they still have anxiety going, or whether or whether or not their pulse slows down. If their pulse stays strong, it usually means that they're bluffing. And when their pulse slows down, it usually means that they've calmed down and that they are very, very, very strong. It can take a decent amount of time to be able to pick up on that read, though. I would say it usually takes between 90 seconds to 3 minutes. I usually give it 2 to 3 minutes. If someone wants to clock me, then I get a little bit less time. But usually after about 2 minutes, their pulse will have either stayed strong, which means they are bluffing, or will have slowed down, which means they're very, very strong. In this case, I actually made a very quick call because when he went to bet, his pulse started to really speed up. So at that point, he decided to bluff. His pulse really quickened up, and I had a very easy call. I call and I beat queen high. Queen 10 of spades, actually. So he had a lot of outs the entire way, and I got somewhat lucky to have him brick out, have him decide to fall through on this bluff. And actually, if we look at his queen 10 here, queen 10 of spades is a good bluff for either potting or going all in. Chose a half pot size, which honestly, his size to me, I did not care at all about it. The only thing I cared about here was his pulse quickening, then I had an easy call. I think it's really, really, really important to be able to understand what type of live reads are applicable in pretty much any type of situation and to be able to trust yourself and follow through on them. I think it's part of the reason why I've done so well live is having good instincts for these types of things, but also just being observant and taking the time and effort to really build these things. I don't necessarily think that these types of skills are, inherent. I do think they're things that you have to work on and try to get better at. A lot of different ways to do it, but largely just play, get in time, get in volume, get in experience, and use that to help yourself make better and better decisions down the road. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Stay safe and healthy out there, and best of luck at the tables.